Hello viewers and welcome to the NK Lounge, a place where we two, me, Nabin and Kem.
My name's Kem, yeah.
Yep. We discuss interesting topics relating to anything from physical exercises, interesting things happening in the world, interesting stuff that we discovered, any books that we've read and stuff like that. We're based in Sydney, Australia, and in this pandemic we thought, why not, when we had some downtime, just do this and hopefully connect with people that find this stuff interesting.
And I think on that note, we find all of these things interesting as well. So we're just wanting to share our perspectives on all of these different topics.
And in the process, learn from drop it in the comments or something about other stuff that that we may have missed or we incorrect about or
100%. We
don't know too much about.
Yeah,
and that'd be great because we actually want to learn as well, right?
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah, exactly. And so to kick things off, I guess we've been talking a little bit about brainwave states and this episode will be geared towards how the wonders of the mind and how the mind works and stuff like that.
Definitely.
So brainwave states, as a background, we're into meditating, spirituality,
and just in general self-development.
Yeah. And there's a lot of untapped potential in the mind that can be discovered, and I think brainwave state is kind of a gateway to that.
That's definitely, So,
explaining it, how science explains a lot of things in physical sciences. Mental sciences hasn't been explored that much because of our knowledge of the brain has been only developed, hasn't a couple of 100 years is when the sciences really took off in neurosciences and stuff. So I don't know if we just kind of skimmed it, but if you'd like to describe it a bit about what brain states is.
So just in general, we've got different sort of frequencies in terms of our brainwaves.
Yeah.
So for example, when we're sleeping, we might be in a delta brainwave.
Yeah. And when you say frequencies, it's very much like, how you see in speaker systems and your EQ systems, frequencies in a spectrum, right?
Yeah, literally just the waves that are moving, bouncing up and down.
Exactly.
Those are frequencies,
And they're basically vibrations. Frequency is sound / vibration. It's pretty much the same thing, right?
Yeah, that's exactly.
And their wavelength determines what type.
Exactly.
And those are categorized into alpha, beta, gamma.
Alpha, beta, theta, gamma. All of these different ones.
They all have this specific characteristic, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's how I understand it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's how I understand as well. So for example, when we're sleeping, we're in the delta brainwave state.
Right.
And so I'm just looking at it here from a peak performance sort of state.
Right.
So we want to sort of manipulate our brainwaves so that we're operating at peak performance. So delta brainwaves, we're very relaxed, we're sleeping.
Yeah. What do you mean peak performance though? So in terms of physical, in terms of mental, in terms of what?
I guess mental and physical. So for example, if I'm taking a test, I don't want my mind brainwave states to be in a completely relaxed mode, right?
Right.
Because my processing power is not going to be that fast.
Right.
When I'm doing a question in an exam.
Right. Go on. Yeah. So the peak performance, what state is that one again?
That one is gamma. That's gamma. That's gamma brainwave state. So that's peak performance. Pretty much imagine you've got multiple frequencies, in one range or intervals, just operating very fast. Imagine that.
Yeah. Okay. So that's gamma. That's the optimal. How do you achieve that? So it's all fun and games about knowing it theoretically, but how do you achieve that state?
So I'll just firstly
give us a background, if you know something, explain it a bit more in detail.
So for example, right now we're in the brainwave state of beta.
Right.
Beta. So we're alert. We're conscious, we're aware of our surroundings. Right. You can hear me, I can hear you. That's beta.
Is that so? These states, are they subdivided into consciousness and subconsciousness?
Yes, that's right. So I'm actually not too familiar. I think it's beta is the conscious.
Right, that's fine. We're just discussing.
Yeah, I think beta was conscious state.
Yeah, speculations and I don't know.
I think beta was conscious state, and then I believe alpha is sort of like a door or gateway to get into your subconscious states. So alpha is after beta's brainwave state.
Right.
And then you enter into theta and gamma brainwave states.
Can you break down what each of these do? So you have gamma, that's your peak performance.
That's your peak performance.
And your beta, which is your conscious level.
That's just conscious, right? So that's one level down from, beta, I'd say.
Yeah, and alpha, what did you...
Alpha is sort of the doorway from the conscious to the subconscious. right?
Okay, it's very like abstract in my mind. So from your from your subconscious to your conscious.
From your conscious to your
conscious to your subconscious.
Yeah, subconscious.
Alpha is the gateway. So how do you?
I think I can explain it like this. So, we have beta. That's our conscious alert state, and then we've got alpha, which is the doorway into the subconscious. Right. So anytime we want to change a habit or reprogram our mind to a new person, then we want to try to get as much as possible into the subconscious, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So that's why.
So you do things without realizing. That's what basically subconscious is. Because it's a habit of yours.
Yes, exactly. You do things without realizing.
Yeah.
But to try to sort of change that habit, you have to get from beta into alpha and then into further brainwave states like gamma.
Right.
Yeah.
So gamma is like the holy grail. That's
the holy grail. I've said it a couple of times.
Superman.
That's the one we want to get to. Yeah, exactly.
Superman.
And alpha is that gateway to sort of get closer to gamma.
Right.
Alpha is a very relaxed, meditative sort of state, and so I think that's where meditation comes in.
Right.
So beta, we're very aware of our external surroundings. But
so conscious beta.
Yeah, exactly. But we want to try to go within. So. Meditation is a process of blocking out the external. Like if I close my eyes, I'm blocking out the external environment.
Yeah.
And
but you still have auditory.
You still have auditory, but obviously you've minimized around 80% of your external surroundings by closing your eyes. You've closed your eyes, so you've gone a bit further away from the conscious now to the subconscious. And then you close your eyes. You might sit cross-legged, and then you'll just observe your natural breath.
Yeah.
And as you do that, you sort of start going closer towards subconscious.
Right. Yeah. And I think I read an article about how they, scan these Tibetan monks, meditators.
These high-level meditators.
Right. And their brain activity. They've got those things they poke and prod into your brain and check your activity signals. It's basically what we're talking about, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just going more into the scientifics of it in terms of the frequency. So little... Like ECG scans that you do, they have those things, the waves. It's basically that.
It's the same.
So it's on the screens, and when they put that into your average Joe, it's different to what is seen on a meditative, like monk, like the priests, monks.
I'd say monks more so because priests don't meditate, so monks meditate. And like an average Joe, as you said, right, correctly, those ones would be more so in the beta.
Right.
And if we're, in a situation of stress, how they say like the flight or fight response.
Yeah.
Beta is very much that one. It's where we're alert, right? When you're stressed or you're in a situation of danger.
You're thinking outside.
Exactly. Things. You're so much focused on the external because you want to survive, right? It's the state of survival.
So it's a survival.
It's the state of survival, right? That state is not a state where you can, you'll want to change. You're so fearful of the environment. You're stressed. You might be at work and your manager shouting at you.
And just to say that this flight or fight stems from back when we were hunter gatherers.
Right.
Thousands of years ago, right? We didn't have a localized area like a civilization where we stay now, and didn't have that security.
Yes, yeah.
And as an evolutionary tool, that was a way of coping with dangers of the external world, like wild weathers, predators, even predators in the form of other tribes and other hunter gatherers, and it was all fight or die kind of thing. So that's how we developed that system.
And is that sort of inbuilt into our...
It's inbuilt into our DNA, our evolutionary history, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that, as we go into this modern age, we can't... We have that thing, we have that active, but we don't need it. Like, we do need it.
Yeah.
But genetically, some people are wired in ways... Like everyone's different. Like your level of that might be different to my level of.
When you say my level of what,
like the flight or fight,
the
response, right, is different, and we react to because of your genetic history, where your ancestors come from, what experiences. It's all how that happens, right?
Yeah.
So in this technological world where we live in a time of security, where we live in a time of wealth and prosper.
So we're not like those cavemen back in the day when we're fighting for our lives or anything like that.
Yeah, it's. We're not hunter-gatherers anymore. we have to, this technological age, we don't need that. And it's sometimes a problem when people have too much of that dialed into their system.
Like maybe because of their genetic, DNA.
Their genetic disposition to that. And it's no one's fault. It's what it is, right?
Yeah.
And understanding this brainwave states could actually be a tool for you to achieve and, kind of dial that down.
Yeah, definitely.
And meditation, how a lot of professionals recommend meditation as a method to relieve stress and relieve that state of mind.
Yeah, I think it was even like basketball, Kobe Bryant, he recommended meditation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like for his peak performance. Yeah, definitely. Right. Yeah.
So you think, I think you think these high level athletes and high level people have tapped into that realm?
Knowingly or unknowingly, they have tapped into that. Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
Because I'm a bit of a skeptic on this whole thing.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think we talked about this before, and I told you, I expressed how this comes across sometimes as kind of a pseudoscience because of the fact that, people try and sell this to you in like a little capsule saying, because I think there was a thing about how if you wake up earlier, you can achieve those alpha state.
You can go from the alpha.
Because as soon as you wake up, you're not entirely into your surroundings, and you're in that alpha state.
You're in that relaxed state where your mind is more, susceptible to changing.
It's more malleable, right?
It's malleable. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And therefore, you get these articles saying, like 90% of billionaires and athletes wake up at 4 a.m. Join. Case in point, I haven't read this book, but 4 a.m. Club?
There's a 5 a.m. Club from Robin Sharma, but you're exactly right.
I'm guessing it's different. I'm just reading the book by its cover, basically, quite literally.
Yeah, but you're definitely right. Proponents of the 4 a.m. waking up have said that when you wake up, because I guess. There's less thoughts happening in your mind at that stage. You're in a more relaxed state.
Which I believe, which I understand. Anyone can attest to that.
Yeah.
Waking up, you're not really thinking too much, right? But then when they say, "Oh, wake up at 4 a.m. and you'll be like the billionaires," and that's what gets me. I'm sure there's benefits to it. I'm sure it can be used, but it comes across kind of like they're trying to sell you something.
Yeah, I know. When you said,
and that's why we're talking about brainwaves, because I want people to give the information to the people in a way where you can take this information and decide for yourself.
Do something practical with it. Yeah. Obviously, waking up at 4 a.m. and becoming a billionaire is, that sounds,
it's a false dream that we guilty of. Yeah. All of us guilty of.
Exactly. It's sort of like a fat diet to try to lose weight.
Yeah, exactly. Without knowing anything, you just
without knowing anything.
Yeah. Interesting. So I guess talking around the brainwave states. So the alpha state is. What are some of the things we can do to kind of go into that?
First of all, is try to put yourself
So apart from waking up early.
Apart from waking up early,
what's something we can control?
Something practical, exactly. Yeah. One thing is that putting yourself in an external, in a situation or place where you're not going to be stressed, for example. So, for example, if I was at work and I was stressed, I would be in a very high level beta state.
But that's not something we can control, right?
We can control that in some instances. For example, I could wake up earlier and I could go, for example, to a nearby lake.
Right.
So I can control that for 1 hour of the day at least.
How does that conditioning help you? I mean, I guess it does put you in, it centers you and puts you in a mood to work. Yeah. And that helps you in that work state. But how does that help you carry a prolonged state of? Is that something you can stay in a prolonged? You can control the alpha state in a prolonged period of time, or is that a short thing? Because at work, you never know. Your boss could be shouting at you. You could have a deadline. It's very hard to keep that in control, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm trying to say is that if I'm working 8 hours of the day, I can't control what happens during those 8 hours. But apart from those hours, I want to be putting myself in a situation where my brainwaves are not in beta. Right. I want to sit down consciously and I want to close my eyes and meditate, for example, in a peaceful environment like a lake, and sort of move from beta to alpha.
That seems a little impractical to me, having to do a job all the time. and the only time you can kind of have off is like in your lunch breaks.
Yeah.
And is that something you can do in your lunch break, and that like impacts your performance levels after you do that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, you could meditate during your lunch break. That could definitely work. But what's impracticable about 2 hours before work when you?
Also, you only need to do it once before like the day, and then you'll be set for the remainder of the day.
What we're trying to do is just try to raise the level of brain waves. We're just trying to slowly and consciously.
It's not like a magic drug where you just take it and like
exactly. So
last for
that's the thing,
X number of hours.
It's a slow process, but it is a practical process.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, muscle is a brain. Again.
Yeah.
The more you practice it, the more better you get at it. And I was thinking about this earlier, how physical exercise that could be a thing where you could put yourself into a space, because exercise increases a lot of endorphins, a lot of oxytocins.
Yeah. I think a lot happens in terms of brain chemical chemistry when you exercise. Yeah,
serotonin and all that. Like after exercise, you get you feel really nice and you feel really relaxed.
Yeah,
and you don't think about much. You want to go to sleep. I think after exercise is only one of those times where I'm feeling like, I could go for a nap. I could sleep
exactly. And that's actually in terms of your brain waves. I actually read about this. After exercise, you'll actually be going from that beta level of conscious alert. And slowly relaxing it to alpha.
Alpha was the gateway. Alpha is the main thing, right?
That alpha is the doorway, gateway into the subconscious. So that's actually a good time to, for example...
rather than taking a nap, do something productive. Possibly.
Definitely.
I mean, physical exercise is a big topic, and like the impact it has on your health is very big. Do you know of any, physical exercises? You yourself do home exercises?
I do home body weight exercises.
Does that have the same effect as saying someone that goes to the gym, or?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I would say definitely not the same effects. You'd have to be quite consistent in doing body weight exercises, and I think the main thing would that goal be muscle building, for example?
No, just to achieve that level of mental awareness in your brainwave states.
Oh, so you're relating it to brainwave states?
Yeah.
Okay. No, definitely would be the same. Yeah, in terms of your mental performance, it would be the same, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. And going off that, I think we can talk about like the wonders of the mind, I guess.
Yep.
And different faculties of your mind that is in play that we actually don't know much about. And one of those things that I was looking at was the savant syndrome. I've told you this once before.
Yes, you brought it up briefly. Yeah. But just for the viewers as well, like, could you recap for me?
Of course. Savant syndrome. There's another part to that that's very interesting. I thought of again.
Yeah.
It's when a person with like some kind of disability undergoes an excelled capability in some aspect of their life. Like it could be art, it could be drawing maps, it could be musical, it could be mathematical. They just unlock some sort of pattern in their brain that is not at a normal level. But I guess what is normal, right?
Yeah.
And it is, at least I think there's a statistic that shows at least 10% of all individuals that experience autistic syndrome in some ways have that savant syndrome. And there was this interesting guy, he was a mathematician, and the way he did mathematics, his brain was tuned to mathematics.
Something like A Beautiful Mind.
Yeah, like Rain Man. Have you seen Rain Man?
No, I have not seen that one.
Similar, but so this case, and there's a few cases, one is, I think, quite common, and there's like YouTube videos that makes it very like, oh, look at this. It's where a person looks at a city from a helicopter view and then draws the whole thing.
Sort of like an eidetic memory.
Sort of like an eidetic memory. And that's, I don't know if savantism is the right word, so the savant syndrome, right? Yeah. And it sounds bad, but I think it's pretty cool.
I mean, I would love an eidetic memory or something like that.
I mean, I do have kind of useless memory, but not to that level. And so this guy, how he subtracts and adds and does mathematics is way different. So to give an example, say you want to multiply two things. I guess let's say the numbers that we see as, or the way we perceive numbers, he perceives as shapes, individual and characteristic shapes.
So like a 3 could be a triangle.
3 could be something, and that's heavily imprinted on his brain. And
right.
Like,
is it something he's trained himself to do, or is it like just a savant syndrome sort of thing where his mind is naturally attuned to that?
Yeah, his mind is naturally like that.
So he's born to think like that.
Yeah, and the weird thing is, I'll get into it later about the other aspect. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So, but the way he says is like diverging off a bit. So he sees these shapes, individual shapes, and they represent a number, not the way we see it. So say you want to add 2 and 2 as a basic example.
Yep.
So he gets the 2 shapes in his mind already, and then he kind of combines them, and that whole shape turns into another shape, which in a shape, like a shape in itself, is another number and is the answer to that mathematic problem. And there's another way as well, like multiplication. He does something weird. We have there's like 4 different shapes, and he shapes together, and that shape is a different.
So he's entirely thinking in shapes when it comes to numbers, when it comes to numerical values.
Yeah, exactly. And you can see it. I think there was a recital he did of the pi, the decimals
like
after pi. How far he could go. He could go for ages because all of those numbers that he's seen or done before are pictures of shapes.
This is amazing.
And then you can keep on going. And then the thing goes for hours.
Yeah.
Right? It's gone for hours. But there's like long pauses in between because he's trying to remember the shape rather than the number. And then he can see a pattern probably that we can't see.
Yeah.
And I just think that's, like some people, there's stories of people who are like average Joe.
Yeah.
Have some sort of accident. And typically a brain injury.
And do you think this shows us actually like what is the level of untapped human potential?
Yeah.
If someone's brain has that capacity to think in those ways.
Yeah, I'm saying like once you have an accident, that activates that.
Yeah.
That same genius-like level, and I think you're right. It does. There is something in the subconscious.
Yeah. That
we are not completely. We don't have access to for some reason or another. Maybe because we are very early in our evolutionary period as a species.
As species, yeah.
And it's interesting because if you think about it, there's a lot that we don't know about anything. The human history goes as far back as the recorded human history goes as far back as the hieroglyphics 5,000 years ago. Yeah,
I think you were reading a book recently you were telling me about in terms of human evolution. What was that one?
That book was called Sapiens. It goes from like how the world began, the scientific to the biological, how it started, how we came to be who we are. We're just going to cut in here. We just had a bit of a video problem, but as we were talking about, what were we talking about? The human evolution, right?
Yep.
So the human evolution goes back, 5,000 years in terms of written history?
Hieroglyphics.
Hieroglyphics, yeah, that's right.
That's
and our physical existence goes back, carbon dated, 200,000 years. So our knowledge of our brain, as you can see, we're very low on the evolutionary scale in terms of how much we know about ourselves. And then I was looking at stuff from videos on because I have some downtime right now.
Yeah.
I was looking at videos about do you know Bob Lazar?
Sorry, who?
Bob Lazar.
No, is that an author? Or?
No, it's this guy back in the 80s.
Yeah.
He's famous for being a whistleblower for the US alien space program.
Wow, okay.
And then some of the stuff that he's mentioned and some of the stuff that he said since the 80s has either been proven up until now or has been he said there was an element 115 and then that's what powers the spacecraft that he was working on, and everyone's like, no, that's not true. So and then now it happens they can synthesize an unstable isotope of that element 115 and he said there was these machines where X-ray scanners, these hand scanners used as an access control device. So you use your hand, it X-ray scans your hand and measures your bones because everyone has a characteristic bone length structure, blah blah blah.
And then if it's correct or depending on how it's
it lets you in entry, right?
Yeah.
And then that's come out as public information for you. I mean that's available now, and that's been proved. And what I'm trying to say is, I think as a civilization, there might be another civilization that's far beyond, like, in the evolutionary scale to than what we are, because...
You think that there's already one, or do you think that...
I think, definitely 100% think that there...
You're saying there's already another group of people, civilization...
Yeah, there is extraterrestrial life form, yeah. I 100% believe that, because if you look into the theories, the scientific theories about the worlds, the parallel worlds, and...
Yeah.
If you can comprehend how big the universe is, you will truly start to believe, okay, there may be...
So are you perhaps in a different planet?
Yeah, like
not in Earth, obviously, right?
No.
We're not. Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole thing about UFO sightings, blah blah blah. But no, not in Earth. Why would there be?
Exactly.
Would there be a different civilization?
We would have found that out. So for the viewers, like it's in a different planet. Exactly.
Yeah, this might be to some a little bit out there.
But even for me, yeah,
But I do believe there's actually there's an equation to determine the probability of an extraterrestrial life form outside, and there's many factors that you put in, but it's a bit far-fetched. But I do believe that because the universe, so you're on Earth, sorry, we're on Earth.
Yeah.
My mind is not on Earth, but we're on Earth in the solar system. Solar system is 200,000 light years across.
Yeah.
Our physical age limit, say you live to 100, is nowhere enough for us to travel outside of the solar system. Right? And we're in our galaxy, we're the Milky Way galaxy. And there are billions of this galaxy with billions of planets. And then there's another theory. So, I know you can't comprehend this. There's billions.
I'm trying to comprehend it.
There's a billion of these galaxies. So 200,000 light years across we are. And there's billions of those out there. And some are only visible to us because of the telescopes and the visible spectrum, because they produce light. The galaxies produce light. They have some sort of star system in there, and that produces light, and we can see them. But there is a theory that there are bubbles of these universes. So there's billions of those universes in a bubble, and there's billions of those bubbles with billions of universes. So I absolutely believe that there are life forms beyond our evolutionary story has only just begun.
Yeah, and
we are at our infancy, regardless of the technological and the advancement we have in physics.
Yep.
I believe we are in the infancy of understanding ourselves.
Okay. So you're saying we've done a lot within our external environment, but in terms of looking inwards and understanding ourselves,
understanding our brain, understanding technology. Okay. Right. Say these, you know how people say, oh, these planes that the UFOs have, they're extraordinary. And the way Bob Lazar was talking about these technologies is he gave an analogy. Imagine dropping a nuclear power plant or some sort of nuclear energy in the Victorian era.
Wow, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So way back in the day.
They know that it can produces energy, right? But they don't know anything about radiation. And it's killing people. It's killing people that come close to the control rods or controls or whatever. They don't know why it's happening. And it will be hundreds of years, even centuries before they realize.
They figure it out.
They figure out, okay, electrons, neutrons, protons, particle theory, physics, radiation.
Yeah.
And I think in that same way, there are a lot of things in this universe that we don't know. And another way of looking at it is we can only perceive things that we are equipped with, right?
So
we've got eyes, we've got a nose, we can taste, we can smell,
basically we're limited to our five senses.
We're limited to our five senses.
So if we can open maybe the doorways to our sixth senses, for example, then our level of perception will increase.
And the thing is, that sixth sense could be anything, right? We don't know what it is.
We don't know that because at this stage we're not equipped with that.
Yeah, I was thinking about this really. So we see things and we say that's what it is. We find discoveries because of our senses and I guess mathematically speaking, that's where we're diving into the unknown now.
Yeah.
But more so or less predominantly in our history, it's been, based on our senses and our observations, right? Yeah. Star systems, planetary models back in the Aristotle days. Oh, the sun revolves around the earth.
Yeah.
Story, right?
Yeah.
So it's been that, and we can touch, heat, cold, we can smell, we can see, we can hear. But beyond that, if you think about it, bees can see in ultraviolet.
Exactly.
Imagine what the world would look like.
The perception would be completely
different, right?
And with that perception, what we could do would be different as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? That's mind-boggling to me, because seeing in UV is like, you could see in radio frequency.
You could see different frequencies, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And right now we're only like trying to make sense of it in the way we can. Like we can see radio waves, because that's the only thing we can do. It could be like, we can think in radio waves, right? I mean, it's a bit out there, but I seriously believe that.
I actually understand where you're coming from with this. And just going back to your book. So what was the title of the book, sorry?
Oh yeah, the whole thing about the evolution of that.
Yeah,
so it's called Sapiens by Yuval I don't remember the last name.
So what was
Harari.
I think that covered the very prior extreme.
So yeah, it covers everything from where, scientifically, biologically,
where we
started.
Yeah.
Where we're going.
Yeah.
What our history has been.
Yeah. And I just want to take you on a hypothetical example to the other extreme, where it's the future. And for example, maybe you can tie it to extraterrestrial beings, right? Did you mention that you think that they are at a higher level of human evolution?
Yeah, because let's say our planet's only 14 billion years old.
Yeah.
Let's say their planet has started, time is when Big Bang started. Let's say in that same time scale, they started 30 billion years ago. So they automatically have 15, 16 billion years head start.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where I'm saying us in the next hundreds to 1,000 years is not going to look anything like what we are now. And some civilization, some life form out there has already
got there. And what sort of characteristics do you think they have already possessed? For example, we can't know that. We don't know that.
I can tell. It's beyond comprehension. It's beyond imagination.
So what do you then think is the end goal of human evolution? What do you see?
That's a very existential question, isn't it? That's an answer that we all want.
We all want that. I just want to see your perspective on that.
I really don't know. I really don't know where we're going, because we're always advancing. We're always the next technology. We're always curious. We're always if you stop and think about it, why? Yeah, sure, money. That's
money. So we're driven by money.
We're driven by money.
Do you think we're driven? An ego brings about that drive for money.
Like money.
Yeah. So do you think the end of human evolution could be where that sense of self and ego collapses?
I don't know. The thing about ego is, we've talked about this before. I believe in the necessity for ego in our advancement.
Okay, so ultimately to be completely egoistic, 100% egoistic?
No, definitely definitely not. And by giving this example, to answer your question about that being the downfall, that could be true. I mean, I don't know, right? But to kind of see and analyze what's happening so far, ego is, I think, a necessary tool in our advancement. Say you have a utopia of everyone has the same ego.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be much change. You need one dickhead.
Yeah.
One guy, boss, let's say, right?
Yeah.
Someone with that high level of ego go, I'm in this position, you're in this position. I have a higher experience, therefore you should respect me. Therefore I know what to do, and to kind of use you. We are tools.
And then that boss, for example, would do steps to advance society, sort of, you're saying.
In a sense, as a collective whole.
Yeah.
You just don't have that one boss. You have millions of bosses and industries carrying this. If you have one person, if you have a company with everyone with the same kind of level of ego, I know ego gets in the way. Say you have two people with clashing egos.
Yeah.
That is detrimental to the work.
That's also detrimental to the advancement of human society for the good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is you need to have that awareness between the two. That's going to happen. That's always happens. And that's part of finding the right person for the job, blah, blah, blah. Right? One person is ready to work under the guidance of another person's ego. Right? And that, I think, is necessary. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the next vaccine to a global pandemic.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
We just have people just researching, going, oh, you do this thing. Oh, I don't know. Maybe, you're better than me. Oh, I don't know. You're better than me.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
So
someone needs to take charge. Someone needs to go, okay, I know more about you. So how about you sit down, stop wasting time so I can formulate.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. So just in small quantities, in some... Small
quantities. It's all about dialing everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Same thing about how we go back to the flight or fight state.
Yeah.
We need that. Say you're driving, right? You need that bit of flight or fight. to have that awareness, spatial awareness, have that, oh, incoming danger, threat, hazard. Oh, I need to turn left. If I turn right, I'm going to, smash into these and potentially kill myself, like driving at high speeds. So you need to have that at a dial level. That's an evolutionary tool that we need absolutely to survive. But yeah, it's all about dialing it, whether it's
I think I can agree
ego,
with that.
whether it's dialing that.
Yeah. I think I can agree with that point. What do you believe, like, on the other side, looking like is
we were talking about the future, and we had like going into the future.
Yeah.
I was going to say something add into that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't know. This is in my mind. It's a joke, and it's not, because it can neither be proven nor disproven.
Hit me with it. I'm interested.
I mean, there's quite a few people that's thought this, but I think it's like we're living in like some kind of simulation.
Oh, like a Matrix sort of thing.
Yeah, Matrix kind of. I don't remember too well Matrix. The movie, you're talking about the movie, right?
Yeah, it's sort of like a simulation where you think someone else is controlling everything. We're like the puppets.
Yeah, basically, there's some guy sitting outside, with some sort of project, and we're kind of heading towards a singularity. This.
When you say singularity, what do you mean? Because
it's like the golden age. Everyone becomes immortal. Everyone highest level of technology.
Yeah.
There's no way to go forward, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Like
the peak of human evolution.
Yeah, exactly. Think of like any technological advances. If you put it on a map, like a graph, all of our computing discoveries and like inventions or innovations have occurred in the last 50 years. Television was invented in the 1950s. Yeah. Computers, I don't know, I'm not too sure about this.
But it's just happened 70s. Within all of this has happened within the last century.
Within our lifetime, like within our parents' lifetimes.
Exactly.
And having gone from, peer-to-peer network, like, internet, advent of internet, only a couple of decades.
Yeah.
But look at where we are now. We can talk to anyone in the world at any time, video, and converse. We can share data at enormous volumes. Companies are making money from selling our information in the form of data. Exactly. Everything's data driven now. And if you put it on a graph, like going back to that graph, like if you put it, it's rising at an exponential rate. And there's at some point, like to put it into like simple terms, you know how they talk about flattening the curve for COVID?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's that point where you can't.
There's not much more technological.
It's saturated to the point where it can't increase. It's like that's it.
And it's like we're already at a quite high level of technological advancement, like in this year already. Like I was speaking to a mate of mine recently, and he was mentioning something called the Hyperloop.
Hyperloop.
I don't know if you've heard of this.
Is that the? I'm thinking something else. I think that's the train.
It is. That's the one. So apparently in Japan, I don't know. I haven't looked into it much, but apparently in Japan,
I think Elon Musk was doing that. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, he's a visionary. He probably has definitely. Apparently, it's basically sort of like a vacuum where you just sit in it and just whoosh. You like through a vacuum, and then you're at your destination.
As an engineer,
As
a finance guy, like two curry professions.
That's it.
I think I can explain this in a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
Basically, what happens is, inside in a vacuum, you don't have friction.
Yeah.
And when you don't have friction, there's 100%, depending on the technology, there's 100% energy transfer. So there's no energy loss. Think of anything in our world, like say for an engine.
Yeah.
So that mechanical energy, the driving of the pistons, when you press your foot in the accelerator, that turns into a mechanical form created by a chemical combustion.
Okay.
So that chemical combustion drives the pistons, which in turn, that mechanical energy gets turned into more mechanical energy, kinetic energy, and you can drive, right?
Yeah.
So, because of that chemical reaction, it's very hot. The combustion engine is one of the most inefficient technologies in the world.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not sure about the efficiencies. There's always new technology improving the efficiency. But because of that heat loss, right, you are losing a lot of that energy. And what Hyperloop is inside a vacuum. I think using electrical, they wouldn't use something like a chemical combustion process. No. Some sort of superconductor, magnets, it's called superconduction, at very low absolute zero temperatures, undergo frictionless, energy lossless,
okay.
energy transfer kind of thing. And that's where Hyperloop comes in. Inside a vacuum, you don't have much friction going on. I think I'm correct there.
Yeah, I can see. Like if I'm the passenger and like inside that vacuum, you don't want much friction when that transfer.
It's more so than being a passenger. It's more about how the train moves.
Okay.
So the train's moving without friction, and you're getting that. So that electric energy that's in the train is 100% energy.
Yes.
So think of it like it's very hard to explain. Like. In a train sense, there are maglev trains, and what they are is like basically magnets on the underside of a train.
Yeah.
And then when they're superconducted, it levitates.
It's
called magnetic levitation or something like that. That's what uses. So no friction, magnetic levitation, 100% power transfer energy. You have unbelievable speeds.
Yeah.
Right? So when you connect, say, London to Sydney, you can travel at the same speed as a plane does within that vacuum. Probably even faster.
And we're already at that level of technology.
We are... Yeah, it's possible.
It's possible. I think the US is sort of, looking to get into that as well.
Yeah, I think there was a plan Elon Musk did within America to introduce the Hyperloop, but I don't know, he's doing like 100 different things, so
he's a visionary.
But I do think it's, that's what I'm talking about, the evolutionary. We are going somewhere. I don't think we are quite ready yet in terms of like our evolutionary. We don't have the tools to think about like kids nowadays. Imagine what technology you grew up with, right?
Yeah, and like my niece is playing Temple Run, and she's at such a young age. She's opening up the phone herself. She's going on the application.
To us, that's like okay, kids nowadays, right?
Yeah.
Because we were carrying flip phones. Phones were just being invented. The iPhone wasn't around when we were born. And that just started. And to them, this is the baseline. And if you think about it, the information age has been so big that like the information that we have is basically like base knowledge for these like newer generations.
It's new, yeah.
Which in itself is like an evolutionary thing as well. Like, but because of the aid of technology, we are... what's the word? We are increasing at an increasing rate.
Exponentially, yeah.
So it's wild. It's wild to think where, like, the mind can go. And we talk about brainwaves.
It's very exciting to see where we'll go with this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think definitely we could link brainwaves. I think.
Like how that falls into, is that going to be a thing? Like in the future where that's something...
I was actually going to bring this up.
Like, wouldn't that be cool?
Exactly.
You have a switch in your arm.
And then I want a gamma brainwave state.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine the potential for students in the future, right?
Exactly. And then you go like, okay, new study shows too much of gamma wave activity reduces your physical, like you use too much of energy and you atrophy in your muscle. So you can only use it at 2 hours a day kind of thing.
You set it to that on your thing,
And it's like, exams, you can't have your gamma on, you have to have your beta level on kind of thing. How cool is that?
That's actually cool. And I mean, we might even see it within
our lifetime.
I feel like it will happen within this century. I just wanted to quickly, when you said we could activate more senses, for example. I'd heard of this. I was just watching the Joe Rogan show, and he was mentioning the DMT.
Of course, as podcasters. Now I think we can say.
He was talking about DMT and how when that is activated or when that's released in the brain, your sense of perception actually increases.
Right. I think there's a whole thing about DMT.
Yeah.
But it's something that I guess we don't understand. But psychedelics, such as DMT, is DMT a psychedelic?
Is DMT a psychedelic, or is it just something that's naturally occurring?
I think it's categorized as psychedelic, but we don't know.
So I feel like we have DMT within our brain.
Yeah, they say you can trace DMT in your urine. It's naturally producing. But there's apparently a gland in our brain somewhere. What's it called?
I think it's called the pineal gland.
Pineal gland.
And in spirituality they call it the third eye, because the reason they call it the third eye is because your sense of perception has increased.
Right.
But the pineal gland. The pineal gland, maybe it's pronounced. Pineal gland.
Pronounced.
Yeah.
They say that there's only 2 times, like naturally, where there's a high concentration of this is when you're born.
Right.
Like the DMT.
Okay.
And when you're dying.
Wow.
Yeah.
So even when you're born, there's a high concentration of that.
Yeah, you can trace it. I don't know where this study comes from, but I read somewhere. It could be a false reading, but I mean, it's believable. So there's something to that, and they found in leaves as in the form of a tea, like
that. There's
DMT. Some root connection to nature.
Right.
Right. Like humans have it, plants have it. So there's some link between psychedelics, some link between like how our brains formed. It's wild. I can't even imagine about these things.
And I think human evolution, we will just find out more about that gland, the pineal gland.
Yeah.
And,
and I completely forgot about what the question was exactly.
Basically just discussing, speaking about how perception increases. More than the five senses. For example, it's like a sixth sense. If you can activate your third eye or your pineal gland, for example, your sense.
It sounds a bit funny when you label it as a third eye.
As a third eye, that sounds like pseudoscience or just too spiritual.
But if you take it as like a
scientific notion,
if you relabel it as something else, like
because
I've seen when you say third eye, I've just seen like people with like a third eye.
Yeah, so it's
just like
just a pineal gland.
It's just like an alternate sensory system or something.
Yeah, that's better.
Right. If you put it like that, like in what way can you change your perception with DMT?
Right? I mean, I know that when people take DMT, they have hallucinogenic
we can go off anecdotes from other people.
Yeah, they have hallucinogenic experiences where I think Joe Rogan was just seeing like jokers pulling the middle finger up at him.
So you're talking about like that subconscious dimension.
Subconscious dimension.
So like there's
you're completely not focused on the external environment at all. You're completely all of these are things happening to you internally once you take DMT.
Yeah, you're on a trip.
You're on a trip.
But the interesting thing about it is there's a few things that are quite like apparent when people do these things, and a few of these things are like a feeling of like ego dissolution.
Dissolution, yes. And
I think that's because of the fact that this experience has such a profound effect on the significance of your being.
Right, that makes sense.
That washes away this ego. It's like, what I believed is actually not at all what I perceived.
Exactly.
Like in this experience.
And then they come back to reality and might perceive everything else. They realize that everything is just an illusion. And
they have this thing called breaking through. That's another thing that's common among things. So you could have a bad experience, or you could have a good experience, or a good trip, bad trip.
Yeah.
And in a bad experience, you don't break through. There's this thing called breaking through is when, if you have a lot of insecurities and anxieties, you cannot break through because you do not want to go and let yourself give yourself in.
You can't dissolve that.
Yeah, and you'll end up having a bad trip.
You'll have a bad
because by rejecting it, you see scary things and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But if you actually let go and like go into that higher dimension, like in your brain, it's wild. Like physically, while people observe you, nothing is happening. But inside your brain, there's this whole another world happening, right?
And I think Dr. Joe Dispenza, he described it as
who?
Dr. Joe Dispenza. So he's a neuroscientist who's explored like the effects of meditation and all these things. But he described, for example, when you have that sort of experience, it's your body is asleep, but your mind is completely awake at that time. So at this stage, your brainwave states, would not you would have traveled from alpha to gamma.
So in a way, like you're not conscious, but your subconscious is now your conscious.
Exactly. That's perfect way.
Like you're in your subconscious, and you can you're in your subconscious. So in that way, it's your conscious.
Yeah, that's
so it's like you're on a different level of being, and I think that goes further into like how the future will pan out, kind of thing. Like how where virtual reality is going.
Yep.
The more realism there is, and bring sense into it, like touch, smell, physical sensations.
Yeah.
And while you're physically, while you're physically there, as we observe you, you're in an alternate reality with sensory systems
your sensory is a
subconscious level.
Yeah.
In a way, there are a few parallels, but there aren't, because that DMT is a little psychoactive properties of DMT.
Yeah.
You're in a different world. But I can see how I'm talking about like a singularity.
There's definitely parallels there. Yeah.
And that's how we're going to be, where we end up. And it's just fascinating how, as a human species, we've come, like, in the book Sapiens, it talks about how everything we've created is fairy tale, basically. Like the bank's currency system. If everyone in this world were to go into the bank and ask for our money that we have, that we see in our system, in our phone, in hard cash, they wouldn't. The world will go into a meltdown. The banks will go into a meltdown.
There'd be anarchy. Yeah.
Because, sure, they can print money and give it to you, but that's not how it works. Money is something that we came up with. And there's a link between, like, I think in the 1700s, the world GDP production was 500 million or something. Yeah. Say less population, it makes sense, right? Yeah. But our yearly, or it's probably not that yet, our yearly could be daily, but I don't know. Our gross production is 60 billion. Look at that difference. Yeah. It's because of our investment in the future. Like, let me put it this way, right? Okay. You're John Doe. You own a company that does construction. You've just recently completed a job and you've got $1 million with you. I am a business savvy John Appleseed, right? I want to open a bank. I go, okay, you give me $1 million. I have $1 million in my account. Sarah Jane comes and says, I want to open a store, a bakery store. I don't have the money. I have a great idea. I think it'll sell. And I go, okay, you'll have to pay me back this money that I lend you, right? And then pay me back for giving you this money. So I give her $1 million. So recapping, you still have $1 million. That's yours. Yep. I physically don't have any money, but the bank has. Bank reserve has nothing actually. Sarah has $1 million, right? See where I'm going? Like now, Sarah goes, "Hang on, I need more money." So Sarah actually gives you a job to do because you're a construction guy, and you do the job for her. She pays you back that $1 million I gave you, which originally came from you, to you. So now your value is another $1 million. Yeah. And you come back with another $1 million to me to put in my bank. Me, I only have $1 million. I still got to pay you back that money. But you have $2 million, right? If you ask for me right now for $2 million, I wouldn't be able to give it to you. No. Right? No. So that's how like the finance world has evolved, right? Think about money that way. Like, don't think of it in terms of hard currency. That's why like investments are a thing. That's why stock market is a thing. That's why
private ownership is actually possible. Because you have these banks.
That's how it's possible. And we'll go into Bitcoin and all of that stuff, right? Yeah. But again, Bitcoin is something just some random dude in the basement created.
Yeah, and now
it's a universal thing. It has an exchange rate to our currency system.
And we can talk about this in more detail in another podcast. But like in terms of the future of human evolution, I believe that we're not going to have any more banks in the future. Right. We're not going to have, what you mentioned, currencies or cash reserves. We're going to have digital currency. Right. And it's going to be widespread, and that's how we're going to operate. This
could be a topic for another
video. So that's where I see, the future.
Future going, Interesting how, like, how the mind works and how we've come so far as we have. And I think this is a good time to kind of wrap.
Yeah, we can wrap things up there.
It's a short episode, but
just our first sort of podcast to kick things off and just share our perspectives.
Yeah, and I think this has been a very interesting discussion.
And we really, I think I learned a lot from this podcast.
Yeah, me too.
I learned a lot.
Like the brainwave things, it's very intriguing, and it led me on to more things.
Yeah, I was very interested in the savant syndrome, I'd never heard of something like that.
Exactly, and that's another
the untapped human potential that we have.
Exactly. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I forgot to talk about that other stuff. Yeah. Well, we'll wrap it up. But let me just give you this story about the savant syndrome. Now you mentioned it. Yeah. I forgot to get back to it. So there's this thing called synthesia.
Synthesia.
Yeah. So it's a disorder that comes in many forms, but some people can hear... when they say, "Oh, I can
communicate with."
No, I can. it's very hard to explain. So I'll just give you this example. So I was on a work trip with my boss with a couple of guys.
Okay.
And in the car we were playing some music.
Yeah.
And the music that he was playing was like some techno and some weird experimental music that didn't have any like rhythm or pattern that I was used to.
Yeah.
That we're used to. And I was like, oh, this is quite interesting music. Like, what is it? And he's like, oh, don't mind me, sorry. I see music in terms of colors.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So he was like, I was like, whoa, what?
So it's just like going back to someone sees numbers as shapes. This guy sees music as colors.
He sees the colors, yeah. And I was like, obviously you're more fascinated. I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
And like, we went to like the background of how he discovered it. He thought everyone in the world saw the world the way he did. Like in terms of colors, like frequency.
So wait, until you brought it up, he...
No, not until I brought it. He knew, he was aware of it.
Right.
Like up until his adolescence or like... up until his like late teens. Well, I don't know when. But there was a point where he thought everyone saw the way he did. And it's very intriguing. So basically like, you could be seeing the world way differently to them how
it's all about perception, you know, right? Our perception is changed.
Yeah.
And just out of interest, like, was this person did he have any sort of savant syndrome or...
No, it's completely, he was normal.
So this one was, okay, yeah. So he was just born with some sort of, you know,
it's just
pattern that...
natural. It's natural. It's very rare, but I know that some people, there's a lot to do with like music, frequency.
Yeah.
But there's smells as well. You can see images according to your smell. I can kind of like, I have that as well. Like many people have that, but very vividly. He can see the colors floating around him.
Oh.
So while to us, that auditory experience of listening to music is completely different. It's in the lyrics, it's in the rhythm, it's in the, like, you know. Yeah. To him, it's the colors. It's the whole experience.
So he's seeing something with his eyes or he's imagining something, you know.
Yeah, like
colors.
It's floating. Yeah. And I asked him about like the frequency spectrum. Like, so like what kind of sounds correlate to what kind of like colors?
Naturally, yeah.
And then he said something about like, you know, synths, high pitch on the higher spectrum, loud, bright synths are usually more yellow. They're more green, like red, blue, you know? Yeah. And then the more darker you go, like into the more bass frequency, it's more black, it's dark, it's grey. So that's why he didn't listen to too much like hip hop type, bassy kind of music. Yeah. And he was listening to these experimental synth sounds. And the way the synths work dictated how the colours moved as well, apparently. So the song that I was listening to, maybe I can put this in a link somewhere. Yeah, sure. Like, I think I remember it in Speedy J or something. There's an experimental album from Speedy J. And it's just different. It doesn't have a structure to it. But...
And this is sort of the music...
And this is like his favourite album. For that express purpose. Because of his condition.
The way that he perceives music,
Yeah. And that's... I thought that was like mind-boggling.
That's actually amazing, yeah.
It opens up your perception about... like how the mind works by looking at some other person's perception.
Exactly. And I think knowledge is really, you know, knowledge and awareness of all these different types of things opens us up to new experiences and ideas. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, that could be just one case of billions of other types of...
Exactly. And I had never heard about it. So thanks for sharing that, Navin.
Yeah, no worries. That could be a multitude of other things happening that we don't know about. No. And I guess we can...
We'll wrap things up there.
Wrap it off here, and then I will catch you in the next episode.
Yeah, and maybe before we go, like hopefully the viewers enjoyed that. And if you want to maybe add something on the comments, maybe if you've had your own like I don't know meditational experiences, if you have any thoughts on savant syndrome, or like completely something because we've got a feel of what we're talking about now. Maybe this exists, this thing that you might not know about. That'd be great. And then we'll look into that, and maybe we'll talk about it on the next podcast coming up.
I'll be very interested to find out about new things, and this is the whole express purpose, find out more, share more, talk about interesting stuff.
That's 100%.
That's it. And with that, we'll catch you next time.
Take care.